In 2008, a brutal crime shook the city of Santa Monica, California. Juliana Redding, a 21-year-old with dreams of making it big in Hollywood, was found lifeless in her bungalow after a desperate struggle. A lit candle, the stove left on, and scattered clues suggested a straightforward case. But what seemed like a simple investigation soon turned into a labyrinth of secrets, betrayals, and mysteries. Juliana Maureen Redding was born on October 25, 1986 in Dallas, Texas, but she grew up in Tucson, Arizona. She was the daughter of Patricia and Greg Redding, who also had a younger son named Patrick. Coming from a devout Catholic family, both Juliana and her brother were raised with strong Christian values. This upbringing, in many ways, shaped Juliana's personality, and she was often described as a very generous person. In addition to her generosity, Juliana was noted for her beauty from a young age. Those close to her said she had a natural charm that drew a lot of attention. Her mother, Patricia, recalled that during school, Juliana's classmates often competed for her attention because of her looks. As a result, she had a wide circle of friends. As she grew older, Juliana developed a special bond with children and loved caring for her younger brother. Her initial dream was to become a successful businesswoman, but her passion for the arts eventually led her down a different path. During her teenage years, Juliana attended Sal Point Catholic High School in Tucson, where she excelled academically and stood out in extracurricular activities. She was a member of the golf team for 4 years and also participated in track, soccer, theater, the recycling club, and the student council. In her senior year, Juliana's golf team won every state championship and became the #1 team in Arizona. Juliana attended St. Thomas the Apostle Catholic Church, where she was very active, assisting in Sunday school and teaching preschool children. Her mentor, Sister Ellen Hall, described her as charming, respectful, and a natural leader. Juliana was a fan of the University of Arizona Wildcats, the school's sports team. In 2005, she made her debut with the Tucson Symphony, showcasing her musical talent. Her passion for theater fueled her dream of a career in film. That same year, after graduating high school, she landed a small role in the independent film Kathy T., filmed in Atlanta. The following year, in 2006, at 19, Juliana decided to move near Los Angeles, California. Her goal was to study and pursue a career as an actress and model. She enrolled full-time in communications at Santa Monica College while working temporary jobs. Juliana worked as a receptionist in upscale restaurants and as a waitress at popular bars, including a Spanish tapas spot in Venice Beach and another on Sunset Boulevard. Despite the high cost of living in Santa Monica, where one-bedroom apartments could cost over $2,000 a month, Juliana found a nice place on Sentinel Avenue, just a few blocks from Santa Monica Boulevard. The apartment had a high-security door and barred windows. She shared the space with her Yorkshire Terrier, Brutus, whom she loved to take for walks in a nearby park. By 2007, Juliana's persistence was starting to pay off. She landed a photo shoot for Maxim magazine in the Hometown Hotties section, a milestone in her modeling career. Genevieve Stewart, a college friend of Juliana's, described her as someone who loved life, enjoyed traveling and having fun, and had a refined taste. Despite all her efforts to cover the cost of living in Santa Monica, she still relied on financial support from her parents for tuition and rent, keeping in daily contact with them by phone. Juliana was on the path to achieving her dreams, but her life would change after crossing paths with people who brought both opportunities and danger. Her life in Los Angeles introduced her to influential people, and 2 relationships defined her final years. One with John Gilmore, a surfer with a troubled past, and another with Munir Uwaida, a wealthy Lebanese doctor with a dark side. John Gilmore dated Juliana on and off for 2 years, between 2006 and 2008. The relationship was marked by breakups and reconciliations, with moments of tension. According to Juliana's father, Greg Redding, John was a violent person. He had once kicked the door of Juliana's car in a rage and also tried to force his way into her apartment. Despite this, they had reconciled shortly before the crime that would change everything. The second relationship was with Munir Uwaida, a 41-year-old Lebanese orthopedic doctor, nearly 20 years older than Juliana. Munir, who earned his medical degree in Beirut and completed further studies in the United States, owned Frontline Medical Associates and was known for handling workers' compensation cases. He was also a multimillionaire businessman, owning a horse farm in Germany, a beachfront house, a Beverly Hills mansion, luxury cars, and living an extravagant lifestyle. Munir met Juliana in 2007 while she was working as a receptionist at a high-end restaurant. Impressed by her beauty and charm, he offered her a job as a personal assistant at his clinic, with a salary far above what she was earning. It didn't take long for their professional relationship to turn romantic. Munir introduced Juliana to his glamorous world. He brought her to live in his Beverly Hills mansion, gave her a white Range Rover, jewelry, designer clothes, and trips to luxury resorts. According to Kelly Duncan, a friend of Juliana's, Munir was obsessed with her, constantly talking about marriage and even offering her a Lamborghini for her 21st birthday. He also courted Greg, Juliana's father, a pharmacist, proposing a business partnership to create Golden State Pharmaceuticals, with Greg as the administrator. However, Juliana's relationship with Munir began to unravel. At 20, she found the commitment too intense and decided to put some distance in the relationship. In October 2007, on the eve of Juliana's 21st birthday, Greg discovered that Munir was leading a double life. Munir was married in Lebanon and had 3 children. Greg showed all the documents to his daughter, who was already unhappy with the relationship, and she decided to end things with Munir. After the breakup, Juliana returned to her Santa Monica apartment, and her family resumed helping her with expenses. Despite the breakup, she kept in touch with Munir and even traveled with him and some friends to Las Vegas, where she celebrated her 21st birthday. However, Kelly Duncan, a friend of Juliana's, reported that Juliana began to fear Munir, who frequently sent her numerous messages and sometimes appeared where she was, giving the impression that he was stalking her. Meanwhile, Munir continued negotiating with Greg about their potential business venture, but the deal was canceled in early March 2008, just a week before the crime occurred. Sources indicate the agreement was terminated after Greg's lawyers identified legal issues in the company's structural plan. On the night of Saturday, March 15, 2008, 21-year-old Juliana Redding was alone in her small apartment on Sentinel Avenue in Santa Monica. Around 10 p.m., she placed a call to 911, but the call was abruptly cut off before being answered. Neighbors later reported hearing noises like furniture being dragged, objects falling, and screams. This reportedly happened between 9:45 p.m. and 10:15 p.m. The neighbors said they assumed it was just a quarrel and did not intervene. That night, Juliana fought a brutal struggle for her life. According to police, the noises the neighbors heard were likely the result of Juliana's fight to survive. The following day, Sunday, March 16th, Patricia Redding, Juliana's mother, tried to reach her daughter all day, but Juliana did not respond. Since Patricia lived in Tucson, over 500 miles away, she couldn't simply go to her daughter's apartment to check on her. Extremely worried, Patricia continued trying to contact Juliana, but to no avail. Juliana always answered her mother's calls, even if it took a few minutes, but she always responded. That's why Patricia sensed something was very wrong. She then asked a neighbor to check on her daughter's apartment, and he reported that Brutus, the dog, was barking nonstop and that Juliana hadn't been seen all day. Around 6 p.m., Patricia contacted the Santa Monica police and requested a welfare check on her daughter. A police team quickly arrived and noticed Juliana's car in the garage. As they approached, they heard Brutus barking, but externally, the apartment appeared normal. There were no signs of forced entry on the door or the windows, which had iron bars. However, the officers detected a strong smell of gas coming from inside, which alarmed them. They called the fire department, who arrived and forced entry to access the interior. Inside, they found a nearly burned-out candle on the coffee table and a gas stove burner left on. This suggested that someone had attempted to cause an explosion to destroy evidence. In the apartment's bedroom, they made a horrific discovery. Juliana's body was on the bed with clear signs of violence. Broken objects and disordered furniture indicated a struggle had taken place, likely the same one the neighbors heard the night before. Authorities secured the scene and sent Juliana's body for autopsy. The examination revealed she had bruises on her skull and throat, along with cuts and severe facial injuries. According to the autopsy, the cause of death was oxygen deprivation, meaning Juliana had been suffocated. There was skin under her nails, which initially led authorities to suspect it belonged to the attacker. However, DNA testing confirmed the skin was her own, suggesting she had scratched herself while trying to fend off her assailant. What made the case unusual was the amount of DNA from an unknown woman found at the crime scene. This DNA was on the doorknob, Juliana's phone, her t-shirt, the stove, a drop of blood on a plate in the sink, and even on the victim's neck. It is believed the apartment didn't catch fire because ventilation helped disperse the gas outside. If it hadn't, an explosion was very likely, which could have claimed another victim, Brutus, Juliana's dog. Had the fire spread, neighbors could also have been harmed since the explosion was planned for the early morning when most people were asleep. As there were no signs of forced entry, police theorized that the perpetrator was likely someone Juliana trusted. The Santa Monica Police Department began investigating by interviewing friends, family, and neighbors to reconstruct Juliana's last days and identify potential suspects. The first suspect was John Gilmore, pointed out by Greg due to his violent behavior. John admitted to arguments with Juliana, including the car incident, but denied any physical violence against her. He claimed he had spoken with Juliana on the phone the night of the crime and told her he was going out for drinks with friends, at which point she hung up on him. A few minutes later, they continued communicating by messages until around 10 p.m. when Juliana stopped responding. John also said he visited Juliana's apartment on Sunday morning. He claimed to have seen a candle burning through the security door, but since no one answered, he left, believing Juliana was upset with him. John provided a solid alibi. He was at a party with friends between 9:45 and 10:15 p.m., the time the crime occurred. In addition to witnesses, security cameras showed John at a store and a restaurant around the time of the crime. The fact that the DNA found at the scene belonged to a woman helped rule John out as a suspect. The discovery that the DNA was from a woman shifted the direction of the investigation. Police collected DNA samples from 41 women in Juliana's social and professional circle, including friends, co-workers, and neighbors, but none matched the DNA found. Initially, detectives considered that the crime might have been motivated by jealousy, as Juliana was described as extremely beautiful and popular. However, this was only speculation, as police found no evidence to support the theory. During the investigation, police decided to examine Juliana's relationship with Munir Uwaida more closely. Although they suspected the perpetrator might be a woman, they had no concrete leads, so Munir was investigated to see what they could uncover. Moreover, Munir's dark side, including allegations of medical fraud and his double life with a wife and 3 children in Lebanon, drew the police's attention. Munir's breakup with Juliana in October 2007, after the revelation of his double life, along with the failed business deal with Greg in March 2008, just a week before the crime, raised significant suspicions. Police theorized that Munir could somehow have been involved in the crime, possibly motivated by revenge against Juliana, given the history of tensions and disagreements between them. However, Munir had a solid alibi. He was out of the United States at the exact time the crime occurred, which initially removed him from the list of prime suspects. Since the DNA found at the scene belonged to a woman and Munir was abroad, he was ruled out as a suspect. Detectives then focused their investigation on women in his close circle. By the end of 2009, after a long and detailed investigation, detectives identified a woman named Kelly Sue Park. Kelly was 44 at the time, a real estate broker, and her height, 1.80 m, was imposing, intimidating some people, and considered tall for a woman. Investigators discovered that Kelly worked as Munir's personal and financial assistant, managing several of his businesses and handling large sums of money directly. Police found that between 2008 and 2009, Kelly had received over $1 million from Munir, including a $250,000 payment just 3 weeks before Juliana's murder. To obtain a DNA sample, detectives secretly followed her and collected a discarded cigarette butt. The sample was sent for laboratory analysis, and a few days later the results came back. Kelly's DNA matched the DNA found in multiple locations at the crime scene, including the doorknob, Juliana's phone and t-shirt, the stove, and even a drop of blood on a plate. In short, Kelly's DNA matched that found at the scene, confirming her direct connection to the events. Kelly Sue Park was arrested on June 17, 2010. She was in Camarillo, California with her boyfriend Ronnie Wayne Case, who was 34 at the time. Since there was no evidence linking Ronnie to the crime, he was later released. Kelly, however, was formally charged with Juliana's murder, and bail was set at over $3 million. After Kelly's arrest, speculation arose that she had been paid by Munir to carry out the crime against Juliana. Strangely, 2 days after Kelly's arrest, Munir disappeared from Los Angeles, reportedly fleeing to Lebanon, where he remained. Even without formal charges, this raised suspicions. Kelly Sue Park's trial began in May 2013 in Los Angeles. The prosecution argued that Kelly was sent by Munir to pressure Juliana into resuming the relationship or to force Greg to restart the business they had planned together. Evidence presented included Kelly's DNA found in multiple locations at the crime scene and on the victim's body. A fingerprint belonging to her was also discovered in the apartment. Additionally, police traced financial transactions from Munir to Kelly, totaling over $1 million. Witnesses told authorities that Kelly often intimidated anyone who interfered with Munir's business or personal life. A forensic pathologist who examined Juliana's body testified at the trial. He stated that Juliana suffered bruises and cuts and was later suffocated, with the bones in her neck being compressed. This was ultimately what caused her death. Prosecutors argued that all the evidence pointed to Kelly attacking Juliana, who fought desperately, but as Kelly was bigger and stronger, Juliana stood no chance. They also claimed that Kelly, in an attempt to destroy all evidence, left a candle burning on the kitchen table and opened the gas stove to trigger an explosion. The defense, however, presented an alternative theory, which shifted the course of the trial. They argued that Kelly's DNA was transferred to the crime scene accidentally. According to them, Juliana had lived at Munir's Beverly Hills home, where Kelly also frequented, possibly staying for a few weeks. When Juliana returned to her apartment, she brought some items, such as a plate and a towel, that contained Kelly's DNA. The defense claimed that the real killer used this towel to clean the crime scene, unknowingly spreading Kelly's DNA. A forensic expert testified that DNA transfer was possible, but in this case highly unlikely. The defense emphasized that Kelly did not personally know Juliana, had no history of violence, and had no clear motive for the crime. Regarding Munir's payments, the defense argued they were ordinary, as Kelly was a successful broker. Finally, the defense suggested that John Gilmore or Brian Van Holt, an actor who had intimate relations with Juliana on the night of the murder, could have been responsible. Brian testified in court. He was granted immunity to speak and confirmed meeting Juliana on the same day of her death. However, since his DNA was not found at the crime scene, authorities ruled him out as a suspect. The trial lasted 2 weeks, followed by 7 days of deliberations. In June 2013, the verdict shocked everyone. Kelly Sue Park was acquitted by the jury of all first- and second-degree murder charges. In short, she was declared not guilty on all counts. The decision caused an uproar in the courtroom. Juliana's family and friends shouted that Kelly was a murderer and should go to hell. In an interview, the Redding family said they were deeply saddened by the jury's decision. They stated that the evidence against Kelly was more than enough to convict her, yet justice was not served. Although Kelly Sue Park was acquitted, suspicions about Munir Uweda continued. According to sources, Munir, who had effectively fled to Lebanon, never returned to the United States, and Lebanon does not extradite its citizens. The prosecution still believed Munir hired Kelly to intimidate Juliana or Greg, but there was insufficient evidence to charge him. In 2015, Munir was accused of running a $150 million insurance fraud scheme in California. The scheme involved unnecessary surgeries, improper prescription of medications, and bribes. He was briefly arrested in Germany but was soon released. It is believed he currently lives in Lebanon with his family. In 2016, Kelly Sue Park was arrested again. This time, Kelly was arrested for her involvement in Munir Uweda's fraud scheme. Initially, bail was set at $18 million, but after an agreement, it was reduced to $1.6 million. Kelly paid the bail and was released. At the time, she handed over her passport to authorities, but sources provide no information on the outcome of this case. There are two widely discussed theories about what happened to Juliana. The first is that Munir orchestrated the entire crime, using Kelly as the executor, motivated either by the breakup or the failed business deal with Greg. The other theory is that a stranger committed the crime and used items containing Kelly's DNA to cover their tracks, unaware that the towel at the scene carried someone else's DNA. This stranger could have been someone the police never questioned or treated as a suspect, someone who merely saw an opportunity and possibly had been observing Juliana for some time. The lack of witnesses and security footage capturing anyone leaving the victim's apartment made the investigation extremely difficult and, consequently, the identification of the perpetrator impossible. To this day, the case of Juliana Redding officially remains unsolved.